Paulina Porizkova has never been the kind of woman who hides behind the illusion of perfection. Even at the height of her supermodel career, when glossy magazine covers runway lights and industry expectations tried to shape her into the image of flawlessness, there was always a part of her that resisted the idea that beauty had to be rigid, still frozen, or forever preserved in youth. And now, at 60 years old, with the confidence that only decades of living, loving, hurting, healing, and rebuilding can give you, she has turned that resistance into a mission. On Wednesday, that mission arrived in the form of a viral video that exploded across Instagram, a clip that began like any ordinary getting ready moment and transformed into something far more intimate, candid, and quietly revolutionary. Standing in her living room, sunlight spilling in from the windows, surrounded by the normal objects of a lived-in home environment, a couch, books, plants, everyday details that remind you she is not posing on a set, but in her real life. Paulina casually shrugged off her robe. Instead of an outfit reveal, instead of makeup tips, instead of the polished guides that dominate social media, she simply stood there in her bra and panties. No special lighting, no soft filters, no carefully engineered poses meant to hide what time naturally does to a human body. Her body, a body that has lived 6 decades, birthed children, survived heartbreak, grieved the death of her husband, Rick Ocasek, rebuilt her life from the ashes of emotional and financial devastation, and found love again with TV writer Jeff Greenstein, stood there exactly as it was, strong, feminine, delicate in some places, bold in others, soft where softness naturally settles over time, firm where muscle still holds. It was not the body of the 1980s fashion campaigns that made her an international sensation. It was the body of a woman who has earned every line, every shadow, every curve that time has inked into her dot as the camera continued to roll. She shifted slightly, letting each pose reveal another angle, not to seduce, not to shock, but to encourage connection. She was saying, almost without words, "This is reality. This is what a real woman looks like at 60. This is what a life lived fully looks like then." She wrote something that struck millions of her followers, like a soft but powerful reminder they didn't know they needed. If you're like me, you will also zero in on the shape of my body and hopefully think with relief. She's not perfect either, she shared. And in those simple words, she dismantled the nearly impossible standards that social media and society have built around aging women. Her message went deeper. And then you can give yourself a little break and wrap your arms around your imperfect self and give it some love. Because our imperfections are what make us a perfect original. This wasn't a motivational poster. It wasn't an empty affirmation. It was the truth spoken by a woman who spent decades being judged by the world for her appearance. Someone who once had to navigate the industry during a time when aging was practically unacceptable for women in the spotlight. And she wasn't preaching from a pedestal. She was inviting women everywhere to see themselves in her vulnerability, to recognize that beauty doesn't stop when youth fades. It changes, it deepens, it matures. It gains weight not only in body, but in meaning. After delivering that raw and empowering moment, she slipped on a sweater and jeans, blinking into the camera as she popped in her contacts and gathered her hair into a casual ponytail. It was such a simple transition from undressed transparency to everyday comfort. But that was the part that made it even more relatable. She wasn't performing. She wasn't selling a product. She wasn't marketing a beauty routine. She was simply showing how she moves through her day with honesty, ease, and the kind of acceptance that only comes from doing the emotional work of embracing yourself. This moment followed Paulina's recent reflections on aging and the surprising parts of her body. She's learned to love more at 60 than ever before. In interviews, especially in her widely discussed conversation with Harper's Bazaar, she revealed that aging has unexpectedly made her love her hair, of all things. The gray strands, which so many women are taught to hide, have become her favorite part of herself. "I love my gray hair," she said. It still requires maintenance, believe it or not, but I feel very good about my hair. It was a small anecdote, but behind it was a larger truth. Aging isn't something to run from. It's something to grow into. For Paulina, hair symbolizes more than color. It represents the choice to show up fully as herself, to reveal the truth instead of hiding behind cosmetics or illusions. It is freedom. She expanded on this idea with an even deeper reflection, one that speaks to women who feel pressure to cling to their younger selves. She described aging's biggest gift as the moment you finally turn into the person that you were meant to be all along. Not the version shaped by industry standards. Not the version molded by what others want from you, but the real, unfiltered you. And perhaps that's not always a happy finding, she admitted, with characteristic honesty. Because confronting who you truly are, stripped of the masks, stripped of the expectations, can be uncomfortable. Sometimes the truth is not what you want it to be. But Paulina believes that if you live with the understanding that other people matter, connections matter, love matters, then you won't be disappointed in who you become, as she marked her milestone 60th birthday. She shared something that resonated widely with women navigating their own transitions. She didn't say she felt younger. She didn't claim some magical anti-aging secret. She didn't try to pretend that time can be reversed. Do I feel younger? No, but every year I feel smarter, wiser, and better. So I guess that makes me 60. It was a simple sentence, yet a powerful rejection of the narrative that youth equals value. Paulina was reminding everyone that the real prize of aging is growth, emotional depth, maturity, wisdom, the ability to let go of what once held you captive. In one of the most heartfelt moments of her interview, when asked what keeps her feeling youthful, she laughed at her own answer, an answer that felt genuine and grounded. Hope, she said. And how do you cultivate hope? Gratitude. I sound like an Instagram meme, but unfortunately, it's kind of true. This was not the voice of a woman trying to sound inspirational. It was a woman who has lived through enough loss and enough reinvention to understand that hope is something you build, not something you stumble upon. It grows from acknowledging what you have, not obsessing over what you've lost. She echoed these thoughts last year when she told People magazine that aging had given her one unexpected gift: the freedom from caring about others' opinions. One of the incredible things about aging is that you care less and less about what other people think, she said. You're like, you know what? I've done my bit. I've been serving everybody else for 50 years now. It's my turn. That line, now it's my turn, carries the weight of her entire journey. For decades, Paulina's life was tied to the expectations of an industry that idolizes youth. She spent years being objectified, judged, and occasionally dismissed once she began to age. She endured heartbreak, financial battles after Rick Ocasek's death, and the emotional toll of rebuilding herself from scratch. And yet, here she is, the strongest, most centered version of herself. At the time she made that statement, she insisted she was living her prime. I am the best that I've ever been, she said. I'm sorry that you think my wrinkles dismiss me from being in my prime, but as a fully formed woman at the height of her power, this is it.